Topic for today is important indirect tax jurisprudence, in which mainly he is going to cover recent case laws in GST. Dr. CA Advocate Avinash Podarji is a well-known speaker in the GST in the India. Now I request our core group member CA Rahul Daga to introduce Dr. CA Avinash Podarji. Over to you, Mr. Daga.
Good morning, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our faculty for today, who is multifaceted in various fields of knowledge. He is Dr. Advocate CAIP Avinash Podar, sir. He is currently practicing as an advocate in the field of indirect taxes, commercial laws, and cybercrime, based at his office at Surat, and he is having his branches and associates all over India. He is currently associated with Ashwa Legal Advisors LLP, attorneys and advocates as a founder partner, with AAP and Company Chartered Accountants as a legal advisor, and with VSSK Advisory Private Limited as a director. He is author of various books on GST and indirect taxes. He has experience of more than 20 years in practice as a professional, and he was a practicing CA for almost 17 years before he turned into advocate practice. He is practicing in the field of indirect taxation, central excise, customs, service tax, VAT, corporate laws, RERA, IBC, and cybercrime. His area of specialization includes representing for litigation works pertaining to indirect taxation. He's appeared and argued before the Honorable Supreme Court of India, various high courts across India, and various other appellate authorities. He has made numerous contributions to the trade and profession by being a part of various committees of the ICAI, WIRC, and other organizations. To name a few, he is a member of the Indirect Tax Committee of the WIRC of ICAI for the year 2020-21, 2018-19, and 17-18. He is a special invitee of the Indirect Tax Committee of the PhD Chamber of Commerce, Delhi, for the past 4 years. He was a special invitee of GST and Indirect Tax Committee of the ICAI for the year 2019-20 and 18-19. He is also an empaneled arbitrator at the Indian Council of Arbitration. He has delivered more than 750 lectures all over India at various residential, regional, and national conferences of ICAI, ICSI, ICWA, and various other forums. He has also deliberated on seminars and workshops organized by the Excise and Service Tax Department and NESIN. He has authored various books which are released, and many of his books are upcoming and will be released shortly. He has co-authored the book Audit and Annual Return in GST, published and released by the renowned publisher Volta Kruger. He's also authored a book on appeals and litigation in GST and customs, published by CGS India. He's co-authored a book, GST Referencer and Manual, published and released by Star in January 20. He's also authored many books on the service tax provisions. He writes articles for various newsletters and online portals such as Tax India Online, gstclub.in, gstccstaxonline.com on regular basis. He releases his fortnightly newsletter by the name Avinash Poddar's Communique, which carries the case laws and articles on indirect taxes, which is being sent to more than 60,000 members. He is a founder and promoter of the portal gstclub.in with the intention of creating an interaction platform for professionals, corporates, and taxpayers about the GST. Currently, this portal has around 25,000 active members who receives updates on GST on daily basis. Plus, in addition to this, there are various other achievements of Dr. Sir, which are there. I'll like to let you all know, welcome Sir for today's lecture. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rahulji. First and foremost, at the outset, I would like to thank the JB Nagar Study Circle for giving me this opportunity of sharing the views on the allotted topic. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, but due to some internal feeling, I was feeling that I might be tested positive. So therefore, I went for the testing today, and fortunately, it's negative, thankfully. So I'm for all of you, and the topic which is allotted is one of my favorite topics. But at the same time, I believe that there is an overflow of similar kind of judgments or similar kind of cause being caused to the taxpayers, and because of that we are moving to the various courts, and the courts are laying down a similar kind of jurisprudence. So what I propose to do today is, in spite of going into various things and various cases, we'll touch upon some of the very important issues which are going to be relevant to all of us in understanding the litigations which are going on across the country and how to deal with those litigations, or those disputes rather, I would say. So before delving into the topic, before entering into the topic and starting the deliberation, I would like to once again thank the convener Krishnan Kumarji and JSG for coordinating and arranging this, accommodating me, because yesterday this session was sought to be done, but because of some commitment that I was already into, I could not do it yesterday, and therefore they allowed me to uh, take the session today, and for which I'm really grateful to both of them.
Okay.
Now, when I say jurisprudence, it carries a lot of weight and at the same time a lot of confusions. When I say confusions, why confusions? Because jurisprudence includes not only the current judgments, but also if anything is sought for or anything is pronounced with relation to a particular aspect that we are dealing into, that is included in the term jurisprudence per se. See, what I will request to all the participants is, if they can turn on their videos, because speaking to own self is bit disheartening. So I'd request if the videos can be turned on so I can see the faces, I can interact with them, because in physical uh, sessions we used to interact a lot, but now unfortunately in this online sessions that interaction is not there. But I would love to see the faces of the participants, so that I can enjoy that this is really a session which I'm taking. Forget about you are ready or not, you are prepared or not, it doesn't make any sense, because we all are here to learn, and our intention is to interact and learn. So therefore the time which is allotted to me, I will divide into two parts. First will be, I'll deliberate for 1.5 hours, or maybe around 75 minutes, and then I would love to have 30 to 45 minutes interaction or questions. Now the question arises whether you can raise a question while I'm deliberating. That all depends on the conveners. If they would permit, I don't have any objection into that. You can raise your hand, and then you can ask the query. Or rather, what I will do, I will complete one aspect or one case, and then I'll ask whether there is any query pertaining to this. And if at all there is any query, then the managing committee may come forward and they can put the query on to me, or maybe they can allow the participant to ask the query directly. It all depends on how the convener is going to take it ahead.
I
But
think I think the second part is better once you
fine,
complete. Yeah. So then we will.
fine. So as soon as I will ask, then the participant can turn on their mics and then they can speak. Correct?
Yeah.
Because I want, see, we all are over flooded. I would say flooded with the sessions. In like good old days, there used to be very few sessions, but nowadays we are flooded. And now once the online sessions are being admitted and accepted, we have thousands and thousands of sessions across the country, and members are fed up account like admitting and attending those sessions. So therefore I intended to keep it interactive. I'll cover one aspect, and then I'll love to have the queries of the members who which are being faced by them on day to day basis. So let us start with one aspect which I want to cover, and which has very minimal jurisprudence, but which is a disputed issue and which is there before the various courts. The issue is multiplicity of actions against the taxpayer. When I say multiplicity of action against the taxpayer, I specifically mean to say that multiple authorities approach your place by way of search, by way of investigation, action, whatever. And they try to investigate and they try to adjudicate, they try to harass the taxpayer. The point which I'm trying to make is cross jurisdiction. Cross jurisdiction. What is this cross jurisdiction? See, as we all know, it is a dual taxation, dual GST regime, dual taxation regime. When I say dual taxation, it means there is CGST and SGST both. And I am enrolled with one particular adjudicating jurisdictional authority. When I say this, it means that if I am taking a registration under GST, I may be registered, or my jurisdictional officer can be CGST officer, or it may be an SGST officer. Now, when I say jurisdiction officer, it means that he will be the authority or center or state to whom I am allotted as a taxpayer. He will be the authority who will be assessing my returns, who will be issuing the show cause notices, who will be adjudicating my matters, who will be hearing the appeals, so on and so forth. Now, this is very, very important and very, very important to be kept in mind, because nowadays in GST, all of us are facing such kind of issues. What happens? I am, let's say, registered and my jurisdictional officer is state GST. State GST. I'm repeating, my jurisdictional officer is state GST. Now a central GST officers sent me a summon and he wants me to appear before him to give a particular statement in relation to some information. Now there are two issues which needs to be kept in mind. One, if that particular officer of central GST has entered into some kind of investigation for any of his jurisdictional taxpayers, then with regards to that inquiry, certainly he can send a summon to me under section 70 and I need to honor that summon and go and appear before him. But if he wants to scrutinize my return, I'm repeating, friends, please keep this in mind because this is something which is very important. But if he wants to scrutinize my return, which is filed under GST, under section 62 of the CGST Act, or rather 61 of the CGST Act, then in that case, my jurisdictional officer can issue a notice to me, not the central GST officer. I hope the point is very clear. It means that while deciding the policy of GST, all the assessees, you can read 9th GST Council meeting minutes, para number 2728 pertaining to that. It said that all the assessees will be distributed between center and states. 90% of the small assessees will go to the state. It says 50-50 will be given to center and state in case of high assessees or the larger or bigger assessees. So that allocation has already been done. Now I am allocated to state GST, whereas a central GST officer is sending a summon to me or a notice to me that your scrutiny, your returns are to be scrutinized by me, so produce these documents. Do we or are we supposed to follow it or comply with it? As per me, the answer is absolute no. Why I'm saying so? Because it is an administrative activity. It is not an investigating authority. Now please bear in mind two very important terms which I'm using now. One is administrative, second is investigative. I'll go into that also. So he is issuing a notice under section 61 of scrutiny of returns, and he is saying, Avinash, please come to me and give these details pertaining to the scrutiny of returns. Am I bound to do that? My answer would be no. Reason being, my administrating authority, my administration jurisdiction is state GST, not the central GST. So now, friends, the important aspect to be discussed. Please be with me for next few minutes and try to understand this concept. Section 6 of the CGST Act. Section 6 of the CGST Act or SGST Act, specifically subsection 2 clause B, is very, very relevant, friends. And we need to keep this point in mind, because that will help us in lot of issues to be resolved. Now, what does section 6 says? It says cross jurisdiction, the power of cross jurisdiction. When a cross jurisdiction can be given, so section 6 subsection 2 clause B specifically says where the proper officer of the state GST or UTGST has initiated any proceedings in the subject matter, no proceeding shall be initiated by the proper officer under the act on the same subject matter. Very, very important, friends. What is the intention of the lawmakers? Lawmaker intends that if any investigation starts, meaning thereby, let me use a term which is intelligence based enforcement action. If any intelligence based enforcement action is to be carried out against me, then that can be done by any authority. I'm repeating, if any intelligence based enforcement action is to be started or commenced against me, that can be initiated by any authority, whether he is my jurisdictional authority or not. I hope you are getting the point. So in my example, although I was having the jurisdiction of state, but if center wants to conduct a search against me, that is intelligence based enforcement action against me, then that can be done. That is permitted under the provisions of the law. I hope I'm very clear that if it is an administrative action like scrutiny of returns, audit, visit to or access to business premises, then all those cases are falling within the administrative power of the authorities, and any administrative power can be exercised only by my jurisdictional authority as per my view. But an intelligence based enforcement action can be done by any of the authorities, whether he is my jurisdictional authority or not, meaning thereby a search, an investigation under section 67(1), an arrest, all those actions which are dealing with investigating powers, not the administrative powers. I hope I am very clear. Not the administrative power, but the investigating power. If the provision pertains to, or if the action pertains to investigation action, then yes, I would say any of the authorities have the adjudication power or have the jurisdiction. But if it is an administrative power to exercise, like scrutiny of returns, sending a assessment order, or what I can say, the audit to be started under section 65, that can be done by my jurisdictional officer, not by any other person. Otherwise, the purpose of this, of having this jurisdiction and allocating the assessees to center and state will go away. It will have no relevance per se. I hope you all are with me. Now let us move ahead and try to understand a case law, which is jurisprudence. See, there are a bunch of matters which are pending before the Honorable Gujarat High Court, which was about to be argued on 8th of the April 2021, but unfortunately from 7th April 2021, the High Court is closed in Gujarat till 16th. Like it was closed till this week, but it is taking up only the urgent matters and the important matters, and therefore this matter is now adjourned. But there are two judgments which were argued by me before the Honorable Gujarat High Court. One is Bhavani Textiles and the other one is Ambika Enterprises. Bhavani Enterprises and Ambika Textiles. In both these judgments, the argument was, and let us understand the facts. Let us presume I was in CGST jurisdiction. First CGST officer came to my premises for conducting a search. Then thereafter, SGST officer has also came. Then thereafter, DGGI has came. So meaning thereby, there were three authorities who approached my place for conducting a search against me. Is it legal? The answer is absolute no, because the law says, if you read section 6(2)(b), it clearly says once an authority initiates an action, then the jurisdictional officer cannot initiate it further. And there is a letter dated 14th October 2018. It is a letter by CBEC, a letter dated 14th October 2018, if I'm not wrong. That letter says the person or the authority which initiates the action, the person or the authority which initiates the action will continue the proceedings. Meaning thereby, if I am under central GST and the state GST officer initiates the action, then even though I am falling into the jurisdiction of central authorities, my action will be continued, my proceedings will be continued by the state officers, and that will be a valid proceedings as per the GST law also. So I hope this will help you, because many of the taxpayers are facing such kind of issues. एक सेंटर से नोटिस आ रहा है, एक स्टेट से नोटिस आ रहा है, एक डीजीजीआई से नोटिस आ रहा है. They are sending us summon, they are saying blah 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 purchases you have done, those purchases are fake, those goods were not transported, and therefore you are supposed to reverse it, you appear before me, accept it, blah blah blah. So you need to understand two things very clearly. One, if any investigation has started, any search has taken place, then the authority, whether it is your jurisdictional authority or not, but the authority who has taken the initiative first, जो initiator रहा, beginner था, he will continue the entire proceedings, and rest of the authorities who are joining him late, first CGST started, then SGST, then DGGI. So CGST will continue, and SGST and DGGI will supplement them. They will support them. They will submit whatever information or intelligence they have to the CGST wing, in my example, and then the CGST will continue with the proceedings. So this is the aspect of law. There were two judgments, as I have already mentioned. I'll share those judgments also with Krishna Kumarji, and he can in turn share with all the participants. But those judgments are very clearly held by the Honorable Gujarat High Court, wherein the subsequent proceedings were said to be transferred to the person who has initiated the search. So I hope it is clear. There is a bunch of judgment which is pending. Now, let us go to the other side of the coin. This is one side of the coin wherein a similar kind of issue cannot be raised by multiple authorities. Please bear in mind. Let me give an example. You have purchased from Avinash Podar. Now, Avinash Podar is said to be a fake or a bogus entity. Now, Avinash Podar's purchase is challenged by CGST. Same is the challenge of SGST, and the same is the challenge of DGGI. Then in that case, the cause of action is one. Cause of action is one, and therefore, the authority who has initiated the action will continue with the proceedings, and rest of the authorities will not be allowed to continue. They can submit their intelligence to the first authority, but they cannot continue. But please bear in mind, if the cause of action is different, CGST came because Avinash Podar's purchase was a bogus purchase. SGST came because Mr. Ashok Bafna's purchase, or purchase through Ashok Bafnaji's, was a bogus purchase. DGGI came because Mr. Krishna Kumar's purchase was a bogus purchase. So there are three different purchases which are challenged. It is not one purchase. So therefore, these three actions will continue simultaneously. I hope you are getting it very clearly. अगर cause of action one है, तो proceeding एक ही चलेगी. Let's say cause of action is search, general search, where is everything is challenged. So none of the parts other authorities can continue. But if it is a specific cause, purchase of Avinash Podar is fraud, is bogus, then that will continue. Purchase from Krishna Kumar is bogus, then that will also continue by the other authority. And purchase of Ashok Bafnaji's is also bogus, that will continue by the other authority. If three authorities are coming for three different causes, then they can continue with the proceedings. But if it is one cause, then they cannot continue. So this is very important. And there are few judgments of various high courts, like Punjab and Haryana High Court has also given one of the pronouncements wherein the same kind of issue was raised, where multiple authorities has approached, but the causes were different, and therefore the court has said that yes, the proceedings will continue and it is a valid proceeding. So I hope आई एम एबल टू मेक आउट दिस पॉइंट वेरी क्लियरली कि जहाँ पे भी सेक्शन 6(2) का एलिगेशन हो, जहाँ पे भी मल्टीपल अथॉरिटीज आपकी प्रेमाइसिस पे आती हो, वहाँ पे आपको देखना पड़ेगा पहला, whether they are invoking a power of administration or they are invoking an investigating power. If they are invoking a power of investigation, administration, and the authority which is approaching you is not your jurisdictional authority or the authority to whom your matter is allotted or your registration is allotted, you can deny that. You can write a letter to them that this is the registration details. I am falling into the authority which is CGST, and therefore you become being an SGST authority have no administrative control on me, and therefore kindly transfer the issue to the my jurisdictional authority. जैसे पुलिस वाले होते हैं ना सर, आपके मुलुंड में अगर कुछ होगा तो साइन वाला बोलेगा कि नहीं साहब यहाँ पे मेरा जुरिस्डिक्शन नहीं है, मैं नहीं आ सकता हूँ उधर. So similarly, you can write a letter to them very humbly, and then you can ask that please transfer the matter to my jurisdictional authority if it is an administrative. But if it is an investigating, then in that case you will have to bear with him, you will have to let him proceed, and you will have to cooperate with him. So this needs to be first eliminated, this aspect. Then you need to see when multiple authorities approaches you, for what cause the first authority approached and for what cause the second authority approached. If the causes are same, then you can ask the second authority to move the matter to the first authority itself, and therefore you may not cooperate with the proceedings, or you may not go and appear before him, write a letter to them. But if the causes are different, then I'm afraid both the authorities can simultaneously investigate, and you will have to cooperate with them. So friends, this was the first issue that I wanted to cover up. If any queries are there, you can ask the queries. I'll be very happy to address to those queries. Otherwise, I'll move ahead. Please. Any queries? Or any issues that you have faced in with relation to this particular aspect? Multiple authorities approached you, multiple show cause notices or multiple summons. I'm not here.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Good
sir.
morning, sir.
Yeah. Good morning, sir.
Achha, this is regarding the right of the central or state governments in case of the investigation or search. And if this right is been say allotted to a state government or central government officer, are there any you can say the proceedings can be transferred from one officer to another officer in some certain circumstances beyond the control of the officer?
See, as per me, it is very well appreciated fact that yes, the proceedings can be transferred. Rather, when I would say the proceedings can be transferred, it means that the intelligence or the information which he has can be transferred by one authority to the another authority. It is certainly possible, sir.
Okay. So they give some reasons for the transfer, sir?
No, it do not require any reasons, because see, as I mentioned in my example, that if a search has been taken place, a general search has taken place because of any reasons to believe at my premises by CGST, and then SGST at a later point in time also initiates the same kind of search, then in that case, as per the provisions of the law, it is not permitted. Because once a search has been initiated by CGST, they will have to continue with the search and conclude the issue. So therefore, they will have to issue the show cause notice irrespective of the fact whether they are my jurisdictional authorities or not. So SGST will not have any locus. So therefore, they will have to transfer the matter. Although they are not doing it, we are moving to courts and then they are doing it. But that is very unfortunate. But we are looking forward for some very good jurisprudence in very soon, wherein the authorities will have to transfer on their own. Otherwise, they will lead into the contempt of the court.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. This is Atul Mathuria. Sorry, my video is not getting on.
No problem, sir. You are muted, Atulji.
Atulji, continue.
Yeah. How to know whether this is administrative matter or investigative matter?
Very well. So there are provisions in the law. When we read this law, it clearly allows you to understand that it is an administrative power. See, in scrutiny of return. Now you have an assessing authority who will scrutinize your return. It is not an investigating power. It is an administrative power. Summary assessment or a provisional assessment or getting a form to be uploaded. Which are these functions? These are the administrative functions wherein you will write or you will approach your administrative officer, your jurisdictional officer. Whereas a search, investigation, what I can say, arrest, all these actions or a detention of a vehicle, all these actions are intelligence based enforcement action. These are enforcement actions. And therefore, any kind of enforcement action is an investigative power. And for investigative power, the word is open. He need not be your jurisdictional authority. But for all administrative powers, he will have to be your jurisdictional authority. Unless he is your jurisdictional authority, he has no power. He has no power whatsoever. जैसे let me give an example of income tax. जैसे income tax में है, अगर income tax में आपका scrutiny चल रहा है और किसी का statement लेना है, और वो स्टेटमेंट लेने के समय में उसको पता चलता है कि जिसका मुझे स्टेटमेंट लेना है वो मेरे जुरिस्डिक्शन का व्यक्ति नहीं है या मेरा असेसिंग ऑफिसर नहीं, असेसिंग अथॉरिटी, वो क्या बोलते हैं, टैक्स पेयर नहीं है. सो इन दैट केस ही पासेस आउट दैट इंफॉर्मेशन टू अदर असेसिंग ऑफिसर, आईटीओ, कि आप इनकी इंफॉर्मेशन कलेक्ट करिए या आप इनका रिकॉर्डिंग करिए इनकी स्टेटमेंट्स का. सिमिलर इशू इज देयर. जब एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन करना है देन इट विल बिकम एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पावर, एंड barring administration it is only the investigating power, which is search, seizure, arrest, in detention. All these powers are investigating powers.
I have a small point.
Yes,
My
sir.
name is Sajjan Kanodia.
Please.
There is one case wherein the investigation has taken place for one assessee, and for cross-examination, someone is issued to 3 entities. Now, out of 3 entities, one entity is assessed with SGST, and 2 entities are assessed with the CGST. Now, the state officer, whether he can go for the detailed examination of books of accounts of all 3 entities, or whether he has the power only for one entity.
What I understand from your question is that a search has taken place, correct?
Yeah, search to third party has taken place.
I understand. See, when a search has taken place and any investigation is there or a proceeding is there with relation to that search proceedings against the person on whom the search has been initiated, then the jurisdiction question comes into point. Ki there is no jurisdiction. Let's say if search has been initiated on me, then in that case I will have to forget about the jurisdiction. CGST, SGST, DGGI, whosoever may come.
Correct.
But in case it is a normal investigation, normal summon is being issued, then in that case the jurisdiction question will certainly come. So therefore, in your example, if the investigation is against me, any authority can come. But if the investigation is against my purchasers by the same authority who has conducted search, he can do that. But if it is a different authority, then jurisdiction question will certainly come, as per my view.
So in this case, whether the authority of the investigating officer will be limited to taking statements and recovery of dues related to that particular matter?
Yes, absolutely yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think we should move ahead to the next issue. Now,
Just excuse me. There is one question from Mr. N.M. Jain. He is asking how to know which authority, state or center, has jurisdiction to a particular dealer.
I think when you will log in at your portal using your user ID and password, it is showing the jurisdictional authority. It is written center or state. So by that you will come to know who is your jurisdictional authority, whether it is center or state. Chali, next issue that I would like to cover up is, or take here is, I have found certain situations wherein inadvertently, by mistake, the registration gets cancelled. See, there are two ways of getting a registration cancelled. One is voluntary cancellation, where your registration gets cancelled voluntarily by you yourself. आप खुद ही अप्लाई करते हैं अपनी cancellations के लिए. And second is where the departmental officers, because of non-filing of returns, because of non-commencement of business or any other reason, cancels your registration suo motu. So I'm not into the second aspect, that is cancellation of registration suo motu. I'm into the first aspect wherein you voluntarily apply for cancellation of registration and your registration gets cancelled. Now, I have found certain situations wherein we professionals are facing this kind of difficulties, wherein I asked for cancellation of Mr. X, but unfortunately, my team member has cancelled the registration of Mr. Y voluntarily. Second situation, I have 3 registrations. I asked for cancellation of registration number 001, which was wrongly allotted or allotted late, but I have started conducting business on 002. I started for cancelling 001, but unfortunately by mistake, my team member has cancelled or I have cancelled the registration number 002, which I wanted to continue. Now, what will happen in this case? The impact is very broad. One impact is, let me first touch upon that issue, which is already argued by me before the courts. And then I will touch upon the another practical issue, which we all are facing or might be facing or might face in future. So first issue is, I might be having some balance in my electronic credit ledger. Like, let me take an example to explain. 01 was to be cancelled, but 02 got cancelled. Now the person has never entered into 01 because it was allotted late or it was never allotted, but on portal it was showing that I have been allotted 01 number. I have applied for a second number voluntarily, that is 02, and then I am continuing my business from at the same number 02 from 1st July 2017. Now, unfortunately, when I was willing to cancel 01, I cancelled 02. And at that point in time, when I cancelled 02 voluntarily, I was having 2 crores rupees as credit. Electronic credit balance was 2 crores. Now what to be done? See, my registration gone. Now this 2 crores also gone, whereas my business is continuing. And they have allotted, now my 01 number is continuing, whereas I do not have any login ID passwords of that 01. I have never logged in into that system because that number was allotted late. Practically ऐसा बहुत लोगों के साथ हुआ है जहाँ पे उन्होंने पहले एक बार अप्लाई किया, वो नंबर अलॉट नहीं हुआ, 2 दिन 5 दिन निकल गया, उन्होंने दूसरा एप्लीकेशन कर दिया, दूसरा नंबर अलॉट हो गया, उन्होंने बिजनेस उस पर चालू कर दिया, पीछे से पहला भी अलॉट हो गया. It has happened in many cases. So how to get that credit back? So friends, there are two judgments. There are two judgments of, again, I would say Honorable Gujarat High Court. Both are argued by me. And those judgments are very good judgments, I would say. Let me give first one, the judgment number 1, which is Bhavani. What has happened in that case? My registration was ought to be cancelled of some other organization. But by mistake, my chartered accountant, my consultant, or I myself have clicked into the tab or number of mine and it got cancelled. The balance of 31 lakhs credit was already there. We approached the Honorable Court. We said that now there is no provision of revocation. Now this is to be kept in mind. When I apply for my cancellation of registration voluntarily, there is no scope whatsoever. There is no scope whatsoever for revoking that cancellation order, because revocation is only allowed in a case where the cancellation is done by the authorities on suo motu basis. तभी हम अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. उसने आपके रजिस्ट्रेशन इसलिए कैंसिल कर दिया क्योंकि 6 महीने आपने रिटर्न नहीं भरा. Then in that case you can apply for revocation of cancellation order. Otherwise you cannot apply. So are you getting the point? In voluntary registration there is no scope of applying for revocation. So what is the remedy? You cannot file an appeal because you yourself has selected cancellation. So आप aggrieved किसके order पे हो? आपने खुद authority को कहा कि आप मेरा registration cancel कर दीजिए, and he has cancelled it on your request. So you are not aggrieved by any of the orders of the authorities. So therefore you will not be fitting for the appeals also. So we approach the honorable court that this is a loss which is cost to us of 31 lakhs. Inadvertently, a mistake was committed by the person who has applied for the cancellation inadvertently. Now we want this 31 lakhs to be supported. This is one issue. Sir, the second broader issue is आज की डेट में डिपार्टमेंट हैज स्टार्टेड alleging a purchase of a person from a person whose registration is cancelled. Please bear in mind, sir. If my registration got cancelled because of my mistake, one issue is my electronic credit ledger balance is in question. इस एग्जाम्पल में 31 lakhs का बैलेंस क्वेश्चन में है. But second more prominent issue is all this sale that I have made or the supplies that I have made, that supply and the credit thereof is also in question for the purchases. You might have come across the questions or the notices wherein the department is saying कि आपने जिससे परचेज किया है वो तो व्यक्ति है ही नहीं, उसका रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल हो गया है. Now please bear in mind and please appreciate, friends, there are situations wherein genuinely he might have closed the business but the purchases are genuine, but department is contending and alleging no, you have never purchased from that person, was never in existence. So therefore these purchases are bogus and you are liable to pay the amount of credit that you have taken, reverse it, pay interest and penalty on that. So that is the second issue which needs to be faced. So in this Bhavani Enterprise, we approached the honorable court and the court has given us liberty and a time limit of 15 days to the SDST officer, my jurisdictional officer, to reinstate my registration. Now this is one issue, one matter. Now let us go to the another matter. Now just I would request friends to give 2-3 minutes, carefully try to understand the aspect which I am trying to share now. The another aspect is that judgment is Netrika Trends. I'll share that judgment also, Honorable Gujarat High Court. Netrika Trends. Now, what were the facts in this case? And these are specifically I'm including in our discussion because these are the practical issues which are being faced by the taxpayers. I'm not into the theoretical issues. I'm not into those issues which may not be so popular or so regularly being faced. This is a mistake which can be done by any one of us. हमारे टीम मेंबर से ये मिस्टेक कभी भी हो सकती है, किसी भी मोमेंट पे हो सकती है, and therefore we should be aware that yes, there is a jurisprudence, there is a judgment pertaining to this. So now the next judgment is Netrika Trends. What does that judgment says? Netrika Trends में क्या हुआ था? Let us try to understand the facts first. The facts were I had 2 registrations, as I've already mentioned. Registration, first I applied. I have not got the registration. Let's say within 3-4 days, I applied for a second one. I got the second number. I started business in second number. In the meanwhile, the first number was also allotted. I never logged in into the first number. I never tried to use it. Unfortunately, that number got cancelled. Unfortunately, that number was continued. Now, I asked my consultant to kindly cancel 01, that first number, because I am never using it. And I continued with 02. That consultant's person inadvertently by mistake has cancelled my second number, which was the number which was being used in making supplies. Now what issue I started facing? सबसे पहले तो मेरी जितनी सेल थी वो चैलेंज हो गई because सामने वाले व्यक्ति ने बोला, because I asked for retrospective cancellation of 01. So therefore I applied for retrospective cancellation of 02 by mistake. So what I have done, I asked for cancellation of 02 from 1st July 2017. Are you getting the point? Sir, मुझे second number cancel नहीं करना था, वो continue करना था. I wanted to cancel the first number from 1st July 2017, the date on which the number was allotted to me, because I have never used that number. Unfortunately, by mistake, My person has cancelled 02 number on which I was doing business. I was making supplies from 1st July 2017. See the gravity of this, meaning thereby what all supplies I have made from 1st July 2017 till the date of cancellation, or let's say till today, all those supplies are now challenged. Because जो जिनको supplies की थी उन सब ने credit लिया था, and now the authorities will come at their premises and they will say that look, this registration of Netrika Trends from whom you are showing your purchases and taking credit is cancelled retrospectively from 1st July 2017, and therefore your purchases are not from a registered person. It is not a legal purchase and you need to reverse the credits that you have taken. This is the biggest issue that can be faced by a taxpayer due to such mistakes. So what does the court let down in this particular provision? Now, please try to understand. Again, I am reinstating the facts for 2 minutes so that you are very well through with the concept of this. I applied for registration, could not get it for let's say 4 days. I applied for second registration. I was allotted. I started business into that. Unfortunately, when I was willing to continue with 02 and cancelling 01, by mistake, I cancelled 02 retrospectively. मैंने रिवोकेशन के लिए एप्लीकेशन नहीं कर सकता था. I filed manually. I approached the officer. I filed appeal also, but all the exercises done by me was in vain because there was no power given to the authority that he can revoke my registration or reinstate the registration and blah blah blah. So what the course was, I had to oppose the Honorable High Court. अब High Court में भी जाने के बाद ऐसा तो नहीं है कि एक दिन में आ जाएगा. It will take its own time. In the meanwhile, I cannot close down my business because I was having stock, I was having orders, everything. And in this COVID situation, when the business is being tougher to get, I cannot just cancel the orders because my registration is cancelled. So what I have done is I have taken third registration. I applied again, I got third number. I continued business with that so that I can at least continue with the numbers. पुराने जो issues आ रहे हैं, जो मेरे clients या supplier जो बोल रहे हैं कि आपका credit नहीं मिल रहा है, वो credit challenge हो रहा है, all those issues I was facing. So I approached the court. What does the court say? Court has given me two options. First option was to claim refund of the input tax credit which was there in the balance. Now I was having 10 lakh rupees as a balance of electronic credit ledger. So court has given me, rather the respondent has given two options to the court, and that is written in the order of Netrika Trends versus State of Gujarat. Now court has said either you ask for refund of this input tax credit which is accumulated in and balance is there, but you cannot use that balance because of the cancellation of registration, because there is no provision in the law to get your registration reinstated once you cancel it voluntarily. So this is a very important jurisprudence, I would say, because there are multiple cases which I am now finding on the basis of voluntary cancellation of registration. You cannot do anything. So that was first option. Second option was to transfer this credit of 10 lakhs to my third account which was continuing. Are you getting the point? First, मुझे कैंसिल करना ही था, उसमें कभी लॉगिन ही नहीं कर पाया. 2, मेरा गलती से कैंसिल हो गया, उसमें 10 लाख रुपए का बैलेंस था क्रेडिट लेजर में. थर्ड, मैंने बिजनेस को कंटिन्यू करने के लिए वापस ले लिया रजिस्ट्रेशन. सो कोर्ट हैज गिवन मी द अनदर ऑप्शन. देयर वर टू ऑप्शंस. सेकंड ऑप्शन वाज टू ट्रांसफर दिस 10 lakh rupees. They have directed the respondents to transfer this 10 lakh rupees balance to my third registration number so that one cause is settled. Now friends, please appreciate ये 10 लाख रुपए जो मेरा क्रेडिट लॉस हो रहा था, I have made that loss good. I could get this credit at least in third account, but still the question of my supplies and the credit thereof to my recipients is still there. Department again is challenging it. I need to substantiate to each of the suppliers that yes, the payment was made, the returns were filed. Unfortunately, registration मेरा गलती से cancel हो गया, and then on the factual basis, the officer may or may not allow. So friends, this is very important aspect to be kept in mind, because multiple times, many a times we are finding a situation wherein the voluntary registration cancellation application is made and in spite of giving a warning also, we tend to cancel it, and then we realize that this is a mistake that has been done, or by mistake some other person's registration is cancelled. So these are two judgments. I'll be sharing both the judgments with Krishna Kumar ji, and he can in turn with share with all of you. One is Bhavani Textiles, and the other one is Bhavani Textiles, wherein 31 lakhs credit was given and 15 days time was given to the respondents. They have reinstated the registration, and we have filed all the returns and taken this credit back through 3B. Second was Netrika Trends, wherein the court has given two options. One, either to apply for refund of this ITC, and as per me, there is no provision under section 54 which will allow an ITC to be claimed as a refund. So it will finally be giving to a lot of litigation. So the second option also was given, that to transfer this credit to the number which was active. And in my case, Netrika Trends, it was third number. So friends, I believe this issue is, I'm able to clarify to all of you. And this is, as per me, a sincere and serious issue, which has to be dealt with by all of us very, very calmly. And these two jurisprudence are already there. Now let me move to, if any questions are there, then certainly I'll take up those questions, or otherwise I'll move to the third issue.
At present, there is no question in the chat box. If anybody would like to have any questions, so they can raise their hand.
Yes, Sanjay ji.
Sir, in this case, what you have explained nicely, my question is whether the recipient who is also facing the issue have to approach the courts to get their relief?
I think they will have to, because there is no other way out. Reason being, why I'm saying so, reason being because the authorities are bound with the provisions of the law. See, जब उनको कुछ गलत करना होता है ना, जब उनको कोई अपने पावर का मिसयूज करना होता है, तो वो लॉ नहीं पढ़ते सर. At that point in time, they tend to avoid the law. लॉ में लिखा है कि आप ये प्रोविजन को तभी इन्वोक कर सकते हो. They don't read it. They will directly use that power or abuse their power. But जब उनको आपको कोई रिलीफ देना होता है ना, then they read all the law, all the points, all the provisions of the law. So similarly in this case, once you cancel your registration voluntarily, now they will have to give relief to you. So they will read the law, and there is no provision in the law, unfortunately, which allows you to get your registration revoked, or cancellation of registration revoked, or reinstatement of the cancellation when it is voluntarily cancelled. So unfortunately, yes, the only authority to whom you can approach and get the relief is the Honorable Court.
Regarding second thing is that you mentioned the transfer of credit ledger balance from, say, second company to third company.
Correct.
Now portal is working based on the electronic filing of the forms and etc.
Correct.
There are certain provisions compulsory where in few cases transfer of balance is possible in case of merger, acquisitions, or no transfer of a company.
Correct. Correct.
So in your case, is it possible that the particular jurisdictional authority allows you to transfer your balance from second company to third company by way of some special provisions?
See, there are two ways to be done. I do agree with the sharing of yours, that certainly there is a restriction and it cannot be done. Although there is one form, I think it is ITC 02, through which the credits is being transferred from one unit in case of merger or change of composition or constitution and all. But there is also a time limit to that, 30 days or some time limit is there. In this case, since it is adjudicated by the Honorable Court, they will have to do it either manually. They may allow us to get this credit through 3B, or through manually, or through by any other mode. But since it is the order of the court, they cannot say that we are system dependent and therefore will not give this relief to us. See, please appreciate, system is made by we. It is not made on their own. So therefore there are always ways and means. अब आपने ये क्वेश्चन पूछा, तो let me touch upon another issue into it, so that you can cross relate and you can understand. There is a judgment of Amit Cotton Industries of Honorable Gujarat High Court, and Sanjay ji, just give me 2-3 minutes. I'll come to you. Once again, let me touch upon this so you will get your answer. Then there is a judgment of Kerala High Court, Madras High Court, Delhi High Court in Precourt Meridian Limited. And then there are further judgments also on this issue. And the issue is, very precisely, I would like to mention that in case of exports, we all are aware that in case of exports, there are two options given: one, with payment of tax; two, without payment of tax. So if it is without payment of tax, then section 54 subsection 3 clause 1 proviso comes into play. But if it is with payment of tax, then the customs authorities are the authorities who directly map the 3B with the ICE gate, and then automatically the refund is given to you by the customs authorities, not by the GST authorities. Now here is a provision which says, in case you are availing a drawback and by mistake you availed a higher drawback, then your refund will not be given. There is a restriction given in section 54 subsection 3. Friends, in all these cases which I have said, Amit Cotton Industries, Precourt Meridian, then there are multiple judgments. I don't remember. These are the judgments which are argued by me, so therefore I am aware of the names, but there are multiple other judgments also. The argument of the department was कि आपको 1% लेना था ड्रॉबैक, आपने 3% ले लिया. अब प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड फ्रेंड्स, 1% और 3% के बीच में लेट से 50 लाख रुपए का डिफरेंस था, लेकिन मेरा रिफंड 5 करोड़ का था IGST का. So they denied to give me refund of 5 crore rupees because I have claimed 50 lakhs extra. And then they said it is a restriction in the law also, and there is no provision in the पोर्टल ऑल्सो कि एक बार हमने कुछ कर दिया या हमने एक बार मना कर दिया या हायर ड्रॉबैक का लिंक आ गया तो सिस्टम डिनाई कर देता है. कोर्ट हैज अग्रीड टू दिस एंड कोर्ट हैज सेड 50 लाख रुपीस जो आपको ज्यादा आपने ले लिया, let it be refunded back to you along with interest. You pay 5 crores because there is no provision in the law which restricts you from giving the refund, or there is no provision in the law which empowers you to withhold the refund because he has availed the higher drawback. If by mistake I have availed higher drawback because of the non-clarity, ये कब हुआ था? जुलाई, अगस्त, सितंबर 2017 में हुआ था. Only in 3 months, when both higher and lower drawback were there in question and there was no clarity. So they have claimed it by mistake, and now they are ready to repay that 50 lakh rupees along with interest, and therefore you should give 5 crore rupees. So again the question came, okay, legally we can give it. Sanjay ji, now coming to your point only. Okay, legally you should get 5 crore rupees, but how to give that? So the departmental officers on record have submitted the system is not permitting. So if you can read the order of the Kerala High Court and Madurai High Court, Madurai bench of the Madras High Court, in Precourt Meridian, they have clearly said you cannot be system dependent. See, system हमने बनाया है, हम system से नहीं बने. So if there is gross inconvenience being caused or injustice is being caused to a taxpayer, then system cannot play that important role that something which is possible or which is legally done just will not be done because of this system. आप सिस्टम के ऊपर रिलाई करके नहीं उसको रोक सकते, and therefore these judgments will also help you in getting the credit back once the court announces it. So get the order in court, Sanjay ji. Once you have the order in your favor through the court, then certainly the department will have to do it. In case they fail to do it, you have a remedy again wherein you can approach the same court saying that this is contempt of court, because system cannot restrict a legal right. System आपने बनाया सर, अगर आपके system में problem है, you should have exceptions also, and there are always exceptions. So this is an exceptional situation, so you will certainly get the benefit. So I think I've answered Sanjay ji's question.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you. So third issue I also have tried to cover up, which is in case of Amit Cotton Industries and Precourt Meridian, very important jurisprudence. And now 15 more judgments have came from Delhi High Court lately, like very recently, on the basis of Amit Cotton Industries. And I'm very happy to share Amit Cotton Industries में already Supreme Court Department नहीं गया है, and they have claimed the refund also, and customs has given the refund of 5 crores, whatever refund was due. So this is a very important judgment, again I would say, wherein if still, because still there are a lot of exporters who have exported during July, August and September 2017, they have claimed a higher drawback and their refund of IGST has been rejected merely on the basis of a circular which was issued. I think it was circular number 38, which said that कि अगर आपने higher drawback ले लिया है तो आपको ये refund नहीं मिलेगा. So please keep this in mind. This is very important jurisprudence. Now let us, अब जब हम section 54(3) की बात कर ही रहे हैं, तो let me try upon and touch upon one another very important jurisprudence 54(3. अभी थोड़ा serious हो रहा है discussion, because now we are moving to a very crucial sections and provisions. 54(3) deals with the inverted duty structure also. Now, when I say inverted duty structure, you all are aware that where the rate of tax on input is higher than rate of tax on output. So the proviso to section 54(3) बोलता है, पहले तो section क्या बोलता है? It says unutilized input tax credit needs to be refunded back. But in two situations, it needs to be refunded back to the taxpayer. One, जब you are exporting goods without the payment of tax. Two, where there is inverted rate structure. So the question before the honorable court was, now again give me 2-3 minutes, because ये आपके बॉम्बे में बहुत hit करेगा, because textiles जहाँ पे भी है, महाराष्ट्र में textiles are prominent, so it is going to hit you. Rather even in diamonds, because I am arguing one of the matters before the honorable Gujarat and Bombay High Court pertaining to the diamonds also. So what is inverted rate structure? See, अगर आप naked eye से, we all are chartered accountants, we all have learned a lot, पूरी लाइफ हम पढ़ते ही रहते हैं, तो इतना तो हमें पता है कि जब हम वर्बैटिम वाइज पढ़ते हैं तो इट इज क्लियरली सेज कि इफ इनपुट्स आर ऑन हायर रेट देन आउटपुट, इट इज इन्वर्टेड ड्यूटी. दे नेवर से मेजर इनपुट्स या रॉ मटेरियल्स या only for manufacturers. No, nothing such kind of things. So please, what I can say, take off this understanding from your mind. As per me, inverted duty is applicable even when 1% of your purchases are of higher rate. Meaning thereby, आपने 100 रुपए के परचेजेस किए हैं, आपका रेट 99 रुपीज की परचेज पे 5% है, आपका आउटपुट भी 5% है, लेकिन 1 रुपीज का परचेज आपका 18% है. सर, यू आर इनटू इन्वर्टेड रेट स्ट्रक्चर, because it says input on higher, output on lower. It never says majority of the inputs or major portion of the inputs. No. As a reader of law or as a student of law, I understand that any input, if it is on higher rate, then the output, you are on inverted rate structure. You are able and eligible to claim the refund. That will be applicable in diamond industry. But the issue which I wanted to touch upon now is 54(3) में सबसे बड़ा इशू आ रहा था कि इनपुट का हायर रेट और इनपुट से एक्यूमुलेशन कैन बी रिफंडेड बैक, एंड देन देयर इज अ रूल व्हिच इज रूल 89(5) which was amended retrospectively, wherein they have deleted the word services. So what does that they tend to do or meant to do? They wanted that any accumulation on account of inputs, I'm repeating, they meant that any accumulation on account of inputs can be refunded back, but not on account of input services or capital goods. That was the point of dispute. We argued before the Honorable Gujarat High Court. There were a bunch of matters, and I am lucky enough that there were 3 matters argued by me also in that bunch. And the judgment was VKC, the lead matter was VKC Footsteps. And my matter was South Gujarat Textile Processors Associations versus Union of India. And now these matters are before the Honorable Supreme Court, and matters are listed on 28th of April 2021 for final hearing before the division bench of Justice Chandrachud and Justice M.R. Shah. So that is for final hearing. Let us hope for the best. But what is the jurisprudence into that? Law said unutilized input tax credit. Now, when we read the definition of input tax credit, it clearly says input tax credit is credit of input tax. What is input tax? Input tax said the tax which is paid under section 9, including 934 of CGST, section 5, section 7, all those provisions are there in the input tax definition. And then what is input? Input it is only goods. It does not include services. So therefore, the interpretation which department was framing was that since the word used is where input is on higher rate, I'm reading for the benefit of all of you. What are the words which is there? It says where the credit has accumulated on account of rate of tax on inputs being higher than the rate of tax on output supplies, except supplies of goods or services or both, as may be notified by the government. So it clearly said rate of input is merely for determining, as per our arguments, the rate of, or whether I am falling into the inverted duty or in this clause is not or not. The for that determination, the rate of inputs needs to be seen. But for claiming refund, the input service, and as per me, the capital goods also, any accumulation because of input service and capital goods are eligible to be refunded back if my industry, if my business is falling within the definition of inverted rate structure. So we have not gone into the capital goods. It is still pending before the Gujarat High Court. But Gujarat High Court has given in favor so far as input services are concerned. And Gujarat High Court has said that Rule 89.5, which was amended retrospectively, where they have deleted cautiously the word services from the net ITC definition or term, is bad in law. And therefore, they have struck down the provisions and they have said that you are not only eligible for claiming the accumulation of credit in case of inverted duty structure business from inputs, but also you are eligible to claim refunds in case of accumulation from input services. So therefore, even input services were allowed for refund. Friends, unfortunately, there is another judgment of Madras High Court which is against us, which said no, input services will not be given as a refund. And this is TVL Transtunnel Stroy Afcons joint venture versus Union of India. That is a judgment wherein the Honorable Madras High Court has said no. 54.3 is constitutionally valid, number one. The refund of inputs will only be granted, input services cannot be granted. So therefore, in this case, it is also tagged with our matter on 28th April. So they have appealed against this order before the Honorable Supreme Court. They have filed SLP. And in our matter, the department or the government has filed SLP. And both the matters are tagged together and are listed for hearing on 28th of April 2021. And let us hope for the best, that the justice will prevail and our matter will be heard and decided in our favor. This is what I expect. So this is a judgment which I wanted to share with all of you. The lead judgment of Honorable Gujarat High Court is VKC Footsteps, and the lead judgment that is in favor of refunding accumulated credits on account of input services. And the another judgment which is against this is TVL Transtunnel Stroy Afcons joint venture. So that is a judgment which is against us, wherein the court has said, the Madras High Court has said, no, you will not be eligible for refund. So now the question arises, what will happen to Maharashtra? Maharashtra mein refund milega ki nahi milega? Sir, Bombay High Court, we have already filed a petition, but unfortunately it is not heard till date. It is pending before the Honorable Bombay High Court. See, as a jurisprudence or as an understanding of the precedents, if you have two judgments, one in your favor, one against you, then the third court is not bound to follow. It is bound to follow, or it is allowed to follow any of the judgments with which they matches, or they think that yes, Madras High Court is right or Gujarat High Court is right. So unfortunately, till date, I would submit that there is no strong point on which you can argue before the authorities at Maharashtra. You will have to rely upon the judgments of either VKC Footsteps and claim the refund and let it be rejected, or file an appeal, or keep it pending or whatsoever. But you cannot force the authorities to follow the judgment of VKC Footsteps, because there is a contrary judgment also. And now, since 28th April is not far away, we are expecting it to be heard, unless something very bad happens with this COVID and everything is closed, then only I think the matter will not be continued. Otherwise, on 28th April, it will be heard. And I'm very happy to share that I will be arguing that matter. And I'm very hopeful that we'll get the order in our favor, and input services per se will be refunded back to us if it is being accumulated on account of the inverted rate structure. So this was the issue that I wanted to cover so far as jurisprudence of section 54.3 and refund was considered. Now let me move to another uh, important aspect, is section 69. Section 69, friends, deals with the arrest powers. Now there are lots and lots of arguments, lots and lots of judgments, wherein the validity per se, the constitutional validity of the power of arrest is challenged before the various courts. In most of the courts, even including Bombay High Court, the court has said that no, it is constitutionally valid. And now all those matters are before the Honorable Supreme Court, wherein the Supreme Court is observing and evaluating, examining the question where the arrest power is a constitutionally valid power under the GST law. Also, they are evaluating and examining whether the arrest can be made prior to adjudication. I'll not go into the details, but there is one judgment which you can certainly keep in mind. And that judgment may be, if you can just note it down, it is Vimal Goswami's judgment. Vimal Yashwantra Goswami's judgment, which is given by the Honorable Gujarat High Court. And that judgment says that the power of arrest can certainly be exercised prior to adjudication. Whereas we have judgment of Make My Trip, wherein it is said that unless adjudication happens, you cannot arrest the person. बिकॉज जब तक आपका लाइबिलिटी फ्रीज नहीं होता तब तक आप अरेस्ट क्यों करोगे और कैसे करोगे? बिकॉज जीएसटी हो या सर्विस टैक्स हो, द लाइबिलिटी इज अटैच्ड विद द amount of tax dues. So if I cross 5 crore rupees, then only I can be arrested. Then only it becomes a cognizable offense. Otherwise, it is a non-cognizable offense. So therefore, adjudication or the determination of the liability is very crucial. But unfortunately, in Vimal Goswami, the Honorable Gujarat High Court has said that yes, the power of arrest can be exercised prior to adjudication. Why they have said so? Because power to arrest is a preventive power. See, if you are having a reason to believe that the person from whom you have to collect the money may run away, may abscond, may tamper with the documents, may manipulate the documents, he should not be held free. Therefore, you can very well exercise this power. But this power can be used with abundant caution. You need to take the precautions, you need to understand, you need to have a reason to believe, very strong reason to believe that yes, this person is going to run away if he is not arrested. This person will manipulate the evidences if he is not arrested. His detention is very, very important, and then only you can proceed. So therefore, in Vimal Goswami, although the court has said, the Honorable High Court has said that yes, the arrest can be made prior to adjudication, you need to appreciate one fact that the court has very categorically clarified that yes, arrest can be made prior to adjudication, but it can be made only in certain circumstances wherein you have reason to believe that the arrest was necessary to protect the revenue. Otherwise, the arrest should be made after the adjudication or after the uh, 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 finalization or determination of the liability. Now, let me mention another judgment of C. Pradeep of Honorable Supreme Court. In C. Pradeep, I think the judgment was of 6th August 2019. The Honorable Court said The Honorable Supreme Court said, कि had it been a case of a liability of let's say 20 crores, the department alleged 20 crores, you adjudicate 20 crores, what will happen? I have a right which is right to appeal. Even after adjudication, I have a right which is right to appeal. File a statutory appeal under section 107 within 3 months, and the pre-deposit specified there is 10%. So the Supreme Court said, you are alleging 20 crores as a liability. If he pays 10 crores, 2 crores, then he should not be arrested because you adjudicate. He has a right to appeal. He can pay the pre-deposit, file an appeal. Then where is the question of arrest? So my submission would be that is also a jurisprudence with us. That is also a judgment of Honorable Supreme Court with us, wherein even by paying 10%, you can convince the court that now see, I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to tamper with the evidences. I'm not going to, what I can say, impress or convince the persons who are going to give statements or manipulate them. I'm not going to play with the liabilities or sell off the assets or venture into any such kind of malpractice. Once you convince the court and also show to the court that there is a provision in the law which is very clear, and the provision per se allows you to make a pre-deposit of 10%, you can convince the court and get relieved from the power of arrest. But yes, so far as power of arrest is concerned, even my personal view is the arrest can happen prior to adjudication, because arrest is a preventive power. It is not an power which is not preventive. Prevention is better than cure. We all are aware of this. So therefore, अगर आपको ऐसा लगता है कि ये व्यक्ति भाग जाएगा या ये व्यक्ति से बाद में पैसा रिकवर करना इम्पॉसिबल होगा या it is going to cause loss to the revenue or whatsoever, then in that case, yes, certainly you can put those reasons on record in writing and then take the action of power to arrest or invoke the power of arrest power. So this is Vimal Goswami case of Honorable Gujarat High Court. There are few judgments of Bombay High Court also, and there is a judgment wherein the constitutional validity has also been challenged, and it has been upheld. The validity has been upheld by the Honorable Bombay and the other high courts, and therefore the matters are now before the Honorable Supreme Court. So we'll have to see what the Honorable Supreme Court takes as a decision. Now let me move to another aspect of section 83. सर आप आजकल देख रहे होंगे कि सबसे ज्यादा प्रोविजनल अटैचमेंट और बैंक अटैचमेंट्स हो रहे हैं. This power is used by the officers without any application of mind. They do not at all apply their mind and use this power bluntly. Now, let us first try to understand the provision. The provision very categorically says that you must have a proceeding pending against you in section 62, 63, 64, 67, 73, 74. Unless there are pending proceedings, the bank account or the provisional attachment of property cannot happen. But आजकल क्या क्या हो रहा है सर? First issue is they attach a current account. Sorry, cash credit account, not current account. They attach a cash credit account. Second is they even attach the properties and bank account of a third person. Third is they are not having jurisdiction, but then also they attach your bank account. I'll try to deal with these three issues today. First is, can a cash credit account be attached? The answer is no. The answer is no. Cash credit account balance is never your balance. And the law says that attachment can be of a property which belongs to you. And it includes the bank account. So something which does not belong to you can never be attached as per my view. And Vinod Kumar Murlidhar Chechani versus State of Gujarat is the judgment of Honorable Gujarat High Court. wherein this principle has been laid down. It cannot be attached. And a cash credit account cannot be attached. And if any attachment has to be made, it can be made through a proper application of mind. Second is uh, a judgment wherein a joint commissioner has initiated the attachment under section 83. Now Honorable Bombay High Court has said, I'll share that judgment also with Krishna Kumarji, and he can share with all of you. The Bombay High Court has said that they can not attach, only the power which is specified in the law under section 83 is given to commissioner. Therefore, the reason to believe or the opinion must be of the commissioner. Then for execution, he may allot it to anyone else. Execution के लिए commissioner बोल सकता है कि joint commissioner, assistant commissioner, even superintendent, they can go and attach the account or they can submit the letter to the bank. But the opinion and the letter in writing will have to be issued by the commissioner per se. So this is a judgment. Again, you need to be kept in mind of Bombay High Court, wherein the Bombay High Court has categorically said that the attachment cannot be made by a joint commissioner, and therefore it is mandatory that the attachment can only be made by the commissioner. And I think the judgment is Praful Nanji Bhai. So this is again an important judgment of the Honorable Bombay High Court, wherein the court has clearly said कि अगर आपको attachment करना है तो केवल commissioner ही कर सकता है. And law is also very clear, wherein it is clearly laid down, if the commissioner is of the opinion that for the purpose of protection of revenue, it is important to provisionally attach the books of the bank account of the person, then only he can do that, otherwise not. And the writ petition number is 5182 of 2020 of the Honorable Bombay High Court. So you can note down that Praful Nanji Satara versus State of Maharashtra is the judgment. So this is an important judgment wherein it is clearly led that the commissioner only has the power to attach the property provisionally or the bank account, not a joint commissioner or any other person. Moving to another issue wherein a third person's property is being attached, and that is a judgment again of Bombay High Court, that is Kaish Impex, Kaish Impex, wherein the attachment of bank account was of a third person. Let me share this, what has exactly happened. A has supplied goods to B. On the same day, B has made certain payments to C. And A, B, and C. Now what department has done? They have initiated the action against A. And now since A has received certain payments from C and B has made certain payments from C to C, they have attached the bank account of C. Proceedings are against A and the bank account of C has been attached. So in Cash Impacts, it is very clearly laid down by the Honorable Court that this cannot happen. आप बैंक अकाउंट केवल उस टैक्सेबल पर्सन का अटैच कर सकते हैं जिसके अगेंस्ट में प्रोसीडिंग्स पेंडिंग है. यानी मेरे अगेंस्ट में अगर 62, 63, 64, 67, 73, 74 इन 6 सेक्शंस में से कोई भी सेक्शन में प्रोसीडिंग पेंडिंग होगी, then my bank account can be attached, my property can be attached. You cannot go and attach the property of my suppliers or my vendors. So this is a judgment of Cash Impacts. In the positive time, I will not be dealing with greater detail because I want to discuss and I want to have an interactive discussion at least for 15-20 minutes. So I'll try to cover up and close this deliberation, solo deliberation of mine within next 5 minutes, because I want to have at least 15-20 minutes with all of you so that I can understand your issues and then I can add my views into that. And the third aspect that I wanted to cover under section 83 was, first was that cash credit account is attached. Second, third party bank account is attached. And the third very important is that they do not apply any mind while attaching your bank account. They only know one thing, that they have power. And unfortunately, friends, by the Finance Act 2021, their power has further been broadened. बहुत ज़्यादा power दे दिया, and now it has shifted from a power to a draconian power. And you will appreciate very, I remember last week when I was appearing before, for a matter before the Honorable Supreme Court, Justice Chandrachud was commenting in one of the matters where where Advocate Bali was appearing and arguing pertaining to Section 83, and they have said, and it was there in all the media reports on the very bold and what I can say highlighted points, that the way in which the GST was perceived is not true, is not being implemented, and the draconian powers are used very frequently without any application of mind. Even the Honorable Supreme Court has to comment this कि जिस तरीके से हमने लॉ सोचा था वो लॉ वैसा तो आया ही नहीं, और इनफैक्ट जो पावर्स हम देते जा रहे हैं वो ड्रिकॉनियन पावर्स हैं, और अभी इन्होंने पावर्स और ज्यादा बढ़ा दिए. Just give me 2 minutes to express my views, which again I would say, as per my nature and behavior, those are the blunt views, but those are the factual views. Now Section 3 has been further made draconian to an extent that now they have included the entire chapter. They have included a person who has been benefited. That means Section 122 subsection 1A में जो व्यक्ति बेनिफिट हुआ या जिसने बेनिफिट को रिटेन किया, उसके भी बैंक अकाउंट अटैच कर सकते हैं. So therefore the question, you might be hearing a question whether the bank account can be attached of a professional, of a chartered accountant. The answer may be yes, it depends. It cannot be a straightforward answer, but yes, in certain circumstances, the answer may be yes. If a chartered accountant can be arrested, then certainly a chartered accountant's bank account can also be attached, provided he is indulged into such kind of activities. But the question is, who will ascertain, who will determine whether he was indulged into or that? Because merely on the basis of allegations made, the arrest is taking place or the attachments are taking place. So now unfortunate part is, now they have amended the section to such an extent that they have included entire chapters. Now there are no sections. पहले क्या था, 62, 63, 64, 67, 73, 74, इनमें कोई पेंडिंग प्रोसीडिंग्स होगी तो अटैचमेंट हो सकता है. अब चैप्टर डाल दिया है. चैप्टर इज सो ब्रॉड. Let us take an example of chapter investigation, search and seizure. It starts with section 67. 68 is detention, transit. So even under section, if your goods or your vehicle is detained by the officer, then also the attachment may take place. Section 69, arrest के साथ में attachment भी हो सकता है property का और बैंक का. Now the most crucial section, which is now included in the, which is there in the chapter and now included under section 83, which is section 70. Sir, section 70 is power to summon. And the words are changed. Earlier the word was where during the pendency. Now the words are where it is initiated, where the proceedings are initiated under any of these chapters. So if a summon is being sent to us under section 70, if a summon is sent to us under section 70, then also the bank account can be attached, the property can be attached. Now you all will appreciate, friends, every now and then they issue summon. Sir, summon issue करने के लिए पहले advisories आती थी कि कब summon issue करना है. We used to feel offended when we receive a summon, but nowadays the departmental officer have started issuing summons like Chana Mamra. They start issuing summon, or they give summon to anyone and everyone without having anything noted. They just issue a summon, which is a pre-printed summon, add name to that and issue it. So now the power has so broadened, it has been made so draconian that even after issuance of summon under section 70, they can attach your bank account and properties. And then they have also amended section 83 to a view, to an extent that 122 1A of persons fall hote hain. Like you will appreciate that if a bogus invoicing has been done, then not only the person who has issued the bogus invoice, who has availed the credit from those bogus invoice, but also the person who has retained any benefit out of that, let's say 1%, 2%, 5%, 10%, whatever benefits, even that persons are liable for penalizing or being penalized under section 122 1A. Now those persons are also included in section 83, meaning thereby if the person who has indulged into fake invoicing has run away and you are caught, you got the benefit or retained the benefit of, let's say, 1% or 2%, then your bank account can also be attached. Your property can also be attached. That is the power which is now given under Section 83 to all the officers. So my only humble submission, because this is not the session wherein I need to discuss all those things, and the time also is not permitting, I like to submit only one thing. When the powers were restricted to 6 sections, 62, 63, 64, 67, 73, 74, the powers were so broadly misused by the officers. So now when the powers are so broadened, it is not only not restricted anymore. How much abuse of power can be there? So we need to be very cautious. We need to be very much alert. At the same time, the government should also come forward and they should issue the guidelines when the attachment of properties, including bank account, can be done on a provisional basis. So friends, because of the paucity, I'll not be dealing into further sections. So I've tried to touch upon section 6, which was relevant as per me, section 29, section 30, which was relevant as per me, section 53, that 54, that is pertaining to refund, which again was relevant as per me, and section 69, which is power to arrest, and then section 83. These are some of the practical issues and disputes and the difficulties that is being faced by all the taxpayers, and we will have to be very much vigilant so far as these issues are concerned. There are further sections which are section 129, 138, 132, which was certainly to be discussed, but because of the paucity of time and because of my inclination to indulge into some kind of interaction with all of you, I'll be resting my discussions here, and I'll be passing over to the Honorable Convener, Shri Kishan Kumarji, to take up the questions and the proceedings further. I'm thankful to each one of you, and more precisely, I'm thankful to JB Nagar entire team for giving me this opportunity of sharing my views on the very, very important and relevant topic, rather very close topic to my heart, which is jurisprudence. I hope I am able to add some value to the participants, and I would love to be part of the deliberation in future also. Thank you so much. Over to you, Krishna Kumarji.
Thank you, Avinash ji, for your good discussion. Now I request Sri Rahul Daga ji that there are certain questions to the participants, so he can just read on behalf of the participants and take it forward.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen.
Yeah.
So is the screen visible, sir?
Yes, yes, visual.
So we'll start from here. In relation to 54.3, in inverted rate structure, ITC on input services and capital goods can be refunded or only inputs?
See, I've already shared. VKC Food Step said that input and input services both can be refunded. And TVL Transtol Straw abscons clearly says that no, only inputs can be refunded. The matter is before the Honorable Supreme Court. And so far as capital goods refund are concerned, the matter is pending before the Honorable Gujarat High Court. In two of the matters, I am arguing the same. Suchitra and Kalakruti, these are two matters which are filed before the Honorable Gujarat High Court, and the matters are pending to be heard.
Okay, next question. ITC's claim related to earlier months in the GSTR 3B for March 2020. The assessee is eligible for IDS refund. Whether department can disallow refund related to ITC of earlier months?
I don't think so. There is no power. There is only one provision, section 54, I think subsection 10 and rule 9610, 96.4, which empowers the authorities to block or to withhold the refund. I don't think because of this, the refund is going to be withheld.
Next question. Dealer deals in buy and sell of fabrics at 5%.
Just a moment. I forgot to mention one thing, that yes, the time barring is there of 2 years. That needs to be calculated from the month, from the last date of filing of return and all. So you need to keep that in mind while calculating these refunds. If the time barring is hitting us, then in that case, I'm afraid the department may disallow. Otherwise, not.
Dealer deals in buy and sell of fabrics at 5%. Dealer pays rent of showroom at 18%. Can he claim refund? Thank you.
See, as per me, no. The answer is no because input has to be there of a higher rate. So in my view, even if he is involved into the purchase and sale of fabrics, which is same rate of 5%, he might be procuring certain packing materials, which might be of a higher rate of 18%. If that may be the case, then yes, he can presume himself to be covered into the inverted rate structure, and he can claim the refund of the accumulated credit. Now the question came that he is paying rent at the rate of 18%. So meaning thereby input service is getting accumulated. And if I follow VKC food step, then certainly it is going to be refunded. If I follow the Madras High Court, then certainly it may not be refunded. So we'll have to wait and watch how the Supreme Court takes the view. But yes, if you are having any additional input, then certainly you are covered into the inverted rate structure. If that is not there, it is only purchase and sale of 5%, then I'm afraid no.
What will happen to refund already claimed in the past years and accepted the refund order passed by the officer by rejecting input services GST? Above query is in relation to the refund claimed under inverted tax.
I'm very sorry to say that if you have accepted the refund orders wherein the input service refund has been rejected by the officers, you'll not be able to do anything. So the best would be to file an appeal before the appellate authority, keep that pending or get it rejected. In both the cases, your matter will still be alive. Otherwise, I'm afraid it may not be given to you in future. Or file a writ petition. That is also one of the ways.
Next question. Department is rejecting the ITC refund relating to zero rated supply, stating both the companies are related though independent. Whether possible to get GST relief in appeal?
See, as per me, yes, because if you are able to substantiate that these are independent persons and there is no relation, see, there is a provision in the law that if it is a dependent person, then the refund will not be given. So if I have a company here and I have a company at US and the exports are being made at US, and I am able to substantiate and prove that on record that the company at US has no link, is not dependent, or is not related to the person in India, then in that case, I am very much sure that yes, you will be eligible to claim the refund. Although there are no case laws till date so far as this issue is concerned.
Can we apply for ITC refund on inputs under inverted duty structure if client is providing service and not selling goods?
It depends. See, in case of processing industry, like in textiles, the processing mills are there or the printing mills are there. So dyeing and printing mills are involved only in job work activities. That is providing service. So they are eligible to claim the refund of inverted duties. So as per me, the answer would be yes. If you are having the inputs which are on higher rate, then yes, you can certainly become eligible to claim refund of accumulated input tax credit.
Next, if tax was paid till March 2020 and thereafter could not be paid due to COVID situation and the registration is cancelled, is there any way to avoid daily late fee?
I'm sorry. No ways unless the government comes forward and waives it or comes out with some amnesty scheme.
Next question. If I have got ITC in input tax credit in my ITC credit ledger and I do not want refund as time is lapsed, can I adjust this in current tax liability lifetime?
Yes, yes. As per me, yes.
Sir, there are a few more questions in the chat box. I just read out them. Inverted duty refund if output is exempted. Can refund of input credit be claimed?
No. It is specifically mentioned in the law itself. When we read second clause to proviso to section 54(3), it clearly says other than nil rated or exempted.
Is there any case law relating to GST on import of ocean freight in India?
Yes, Mohit Minerals. Mohit Minerals is a judgment of Honorable Gujarat High Court, which is now pending before the Honorable Supreme Court, wherein the Honorable Gujarat High Court has said that on ocean freight there is no tax to be paid. So therefore, there is a judgment.
One more question. In case of final output is exempt from tax, but in some cases output tax is payable on penalty, bond money received, tax payable on sale of tender documents, etc. Can ITC be availed to the extent direct nexus? Or
Section
company has
17
to
allows you. Section 17 allows you that if you are dealing into exempt as well as taxable supplies, then in that case, you can either calculate the proportionate or whatever is directly attributable, then you can count the entire ITC of that.
If refund application is filed on 5/2/21 for the period October 18 to March 19, then will the relevant period of 2 years be computed for each monthly 3B return filed or the last day of return of March 2019?
See, let me share one thing, that the time barring for calculation of 2 months was amended from 1st February 2019, meaning thereby till January 2019, end of the year and then 2 years needs to be calculated. End of the year and meaning thereby March 2019 से 2 साल calculate करना है. But from February 2019 onwards, it is going to be the 3B's date of filing of return or due date of filing of return, from where you'll have to calculate 2 years. So now the question is, refund application is filed on 5th February 2021. As per me, till January 2019, we don't have any issue. For February, it was 2 years from 20th March 2019. Then again, we have no issues. And for March, it was April 19, from where 2 years to be calculated. Again, we have no issues. So as per me, there will not be any issue in these refunds for October 18 to March 19.
Arvind, you can unmute Mr. Sanjay Domadia. Sanjay ji, you can ask the question.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. Sir, during your discussion regarding the duty drawback issue, I want to know, I think there was a transitional period, July to September, the various circulars have been issued for the duty drawback, higher duty drawback. But what I understand, this duty drawback normally is fixed based on the all India rates. There are two types of duty drawback. One is all India rates fixed by the fixation committee, and another was the special rates fixed for the particular assessee. Now, my question is, if during the transitional period, if the assessee was not registered under excise or service tax pre-GST period, and he was availing duty drawback as under normal circumstances on all India rates. Now, my question is, the same assessee after transitional period, means during the transitional period, July to September, he has availed this duty drawback by giving the declaration on the shipping bill and all the relevant document to the custom authority. My understanding of duty drawback benefit was particularly related to the custom portion or the excise portion, and the assessee was not registered under excise or the service tax. Whether this higher duty drawback issue will impact them for claiming the refund.
See, my understanding says you are going for claiming refund of IGST paid while executing the exports. if I read the judgment of Amit Cotton Industries or Precott Meridian very carefully, we'll find out observation by the court that there is no restriction of claiming refund of IGST in law, except in certain circumstances wherein आपके अगेंस्ट में कोई जजमेंट आ गया, आपने कोई दूसरी लाइबिलिटीज थी उसके सामने आपको विदहोल्ड कर सकते हैं, अदरवाइज दे कैन नॉट विदहोल्ड योर रिफंड. So my understanding and answer would be same, that as per me there should not be any impact for claiming refund in those cases also.
Mr. Srikant Vaishnav. Srikant ji had asked one question, so you can unmute yourself, sir. Otherwise, Jayesh Thakkar ji had raised his hand, so you can ask some question if you want. You can unmute yourself, Mr. Jayesh ji.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, sir, my small question was like that. If a company is into the out and out sales, it procures the goods from the China and directly sells to the US clients. And for these sales, they are supposed to hire advertisement companies, say Facebook, Ireland, for their advertisement of the product at US. But those the payments have been done from the Indian company because they're having the Indian existence. They don't have any registration over there at US. Now the query is whether the place of supply would be the India for paying the tax under reverse charge mechanism, as the OIDR specifically covers the internet services on advertisement would be the place from where the service recipient is located.
As per my view, if you consider this to be an import of service, then in that case RCM will certainly be applicable. Now, so far as online information data retrieval and access services is concerned, OIDR services are concerned, you can say that the service recipient per se, his location will be the place of supply, but I would go with the first answer, because as per me, what I will do is I will record in my Indian company's books as a service which I am procuring for making a sale from China to US, and therefore to me it will be an import of service. Rather, I would mention another aspect of it, that when I am transferring or supplying goods from China to US, I am acting as an intermediary. If I consider myself to be an intermediary, and I fall into the intermediary services, that is 13(8) of the IGST Act, then also my location will be the place of supply. So what I suggest is that the commission which I am receiving or the profit which I am receiving is liable for tax as an intermediary service, and this RCM which is to be paid can be utilized as a credit against those outward liabilities. So my submission would be yes, RCM should be applicable to this. Although I need to go into further details to understand the entire mechanism, but prima facie it seems to be a matter of import of service, and therefore RCM should be applicable.
Mr. Jitendra Upadhyay had asked one question, matching concept of input goods and output goods. Can input of non-matching input, we can claim refund?
I don't think there is any matching concept as on date of input or output, and there is no provision of refund of any ITC except in one case, that is inverted rate restructure. If you are into the inverted rate, then you can claim the refund, otherwise not.
Sajan Kanodia ji has one query. So Sajan ji, if you had query, you can unmute yourself. Hello, Sajan ji. Okay.
Hello.
Yes, Srikant ji, you can ask you the question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
मेरा क्वेरी ऐसा है, सर्विस टैक्स का कुछ 7 करोड़ का एक एसएससी का क्रेडिट था, ST3 रिटर्न, ST3 रिटर्न में क्रेडिट था,
ठीक है,
प्राण 1 में उन्होंने क्लेम कर लिया,
ठीक है,
आज तक उसको यूज नहीं किया है,
ठीक है.
now they are planning to use it, file export services with LUT for the same period and with IGST. Now they are saying they can use that service tax credit against that IGST liability. question is both the refund applications for same period will go to the same jurisdiction, क्योंकि export of services में customs तो है नहीं, तो will both the service tax both the refund applications will they get refund in both the cases against IGST and against LUT? And according to circular 125, they ask for GSTR 2A. So how can we generate 2A for service tax period? What is the remedy for that?
सर देखिए, to be very honest, legally there is no embargo, there is no restriction of claiming credit and refund thereof. तो आप refund ले सकते हैं. In both these situation, as per my view, the refund will be allowed. Now practically अगर हम बात करें तो difficult है, क्योंकि officer अगर same है, same jurisdiction में जाएगा, then he may have his own understanding of the law and he may raise a query and a show cause can be sent to you. Now they are relying on the circulars and the circulars are binding on them, and as you are rightly mentioning, circular number 125 says that 2A needs to be there, and rather circular number 135, if I'm not wrong, is more stringent.
Right.
So yes, there will be an issue, but for transitional credits, what transitional credits at the time of issuance of show cause notice, you can very well say that this is not a credit which is coming through a 3B, which I am claiming as a refund. This is a credit which is coming through my ST3 returns and via Tran 1, and therefore it should be allowed as a refund. Although I have not utilized it, I believe it will not be an easy task to cross through, but at the same time, legally you are eligible for both the refunds. अब वो ये ऑफिसर से आपको मिलता है या अपीलेट अथॉरिटी से मिलता है या आपको कोर्ट से मिलता है, आई एम नॉट श्योर अबाउट इट, बट यू आर एलिजिबल फॉर रिफंड इन बोथ द केसेस.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
In case any other member is having any query.
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah.
Yeah, convener, I have one doubt.
Yes.
Sir, this is related to Rule 96.
We lost your voice.
Lot of notices by DRI relate one.
Sir, I think there is some.
My question is related.
Is it related to 9610?
Yeah, whether I am audible now?
Yes. 9610. The DRI notices which are sent from Calcutta to all the persons who have procured the goods under advance authorization.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct.
Sir, this
Right,
is a sub judice matter. This is a sub judice matter. Although in Cosmos, the Honorable Gujarat High Court has said that 9610 is constitutionally valid. So, how far it is constitutionally valid is still a question, because again a review has been filed before the Honorable Gujarat High Court. We have also filed in Unja Agro Company and all before the Honorable Gujarat High Court, and we are also filing before Calcutta and Bombay High Court. So the matter is still sub judice. But if you ask my personal view, then my personal view would be that 9610 is restricting beyond the authority which is provided in the law. Because आप जब sections पढ़ते हैं, section 16 पढ़ते हैं, तो section 16 of the IGST Act clearly lays down कि subject to conditions and restrictions. So those conditions and restrictions are for exports. Those conditions and restrictions, as per my reading, is not for claiming refund. It says subject to, the person can export with payment of tax, subject to condition, restrictions and procedure, and claim refund thereof. So meaning thereby I read it in an isolated manner that you can export subject to conditions and procedures laid down and claim the refund. So meaning thereby I am eligible to claim refund, and 9610 is exceeding the powers or exceeding the provisions, or is in contravention to the provisions of the law, and therefore the validity is again challenged by me also, and it is also already challenged in Cosmos. So Sajjanji, I'll request you to please wait for some time. If you have any of the cases which are pending by DRI, then you should reply back to them. You should cooperate in the proceedings and then see how they are moving ahead. And if they move for any coercive action, then you can move to the appropriate court and take a shelter by way of stay of any coercive actions. So this is at this point in time, I can comment only to this extent.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Podar, for sharing your valuable knowledge and practical experience on the topic. Now I request our Deputy Convener, CA Jayesh Thakkarji, for give a formal vote of thanks. Jayesh Thakkarji, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving this opportunity to propose heartily vote of thanks to our today's speaker, C. Avinash Podarji. Sir, I would say I know him since long back because in a lockdown when it was started in initial phase, he took up the free of session for our members for the close by close analysis of the CGST Act, IGST Act, and I was part of that discussion. So I know him. He's the way he's working for our profession, and today also to justify our today's topic and the way he has covered all the jurisprudence without going into the technical session. He has covered important sections with the examples, and the way he has answered the queries of the member in a live session. We should really appreciate, and we thank for giving us the opportunity and sharing us time or valuable time with us. So on behalf of our JB Nagar CP Study Circle, we propose heartily vote of thanks to you, sir, and thanks for accepting our invitation.
Thank you, sir.
I also thank all the members. I hope all are benefited with his views, and I thank all the members for joining us today. And with the permission of all the members, we may close our today's sessions, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the
Thank
opportunity.
Thank you,
you. Thank
thank you,
you.
Krishna, sir. Thank you all.